S.H.Figuarts Dragon Ball Z Metal Cooler was released on the 22nd of Japan as a premium Bandai web exclusive and retails for $120 US or 1200 Japanese yen. I don't remember if there was ever a release where the whole fan base was so divided, you either hated the chrome finish or loved it. And even then, you had collectors debating whether Metal Cooler was actually just plain silver, reflecting the teal green water, grass and sky of new planet Namek, or if Metal Cooler actually had tints of teal mixed in with his shiny metallic surface. I'm not sure myself, I've never heard or read anything official from the character designers, and honestly, it doesn't really bother me. If anyone has any info about Metal Cooler and the movie, let us know in the comments. I'm on the team who loves this reflective finish, but I can also understand if you're not a fan of it either. I'd be lying if I said it took me a while to actually record this review because of how intimidating it was initially, but let's take a closer look at the details and I'll tell you what I like and don't like about the figure. So what do I like? This is by far the most gorgeous looking release I've ever had the pleasure of owning. But if you collect Saint Seiya, then you're probably thinking, I've seen shinier. Speaking of shiny, the vacuum sealed metal is extremely reflective to a point where it's basically a 6-inch articulated mirror, and I can safely say that you can handle the figure with your bare hands without leaving too much of a mess from your fingerprints, sweat and oil. And regardless of whether you like it or not, I have to praise Tamashi for trying something new and doing it really, really well. There is a tiny speckle on the left thigh that the camera probably won't be able to pick up, but that's pretty much it in terms of imperfections. You have a mix of vac metal and normal plastic with the reflective areas having a bluish green hue to it. It's on the head, shoulders, chest, abdominal area, legs, feet, and the top section of the tail. The neck area, the forearms, and inner section of his waist are painted a nice shiny plain silver that is a lot less reflective. The hands also have that teal hue to it, but they aren't reflective either. The joints are a plain plastic, so there is a color variation, but the colors are close enough to make the whole figure look cohesive. They did, however, vac metal the knee joints, which I think is a nice touch. When you're not lost in a sea of mirrors, there's actually quite a bit of sculpted detail in there. Broad angular shoulders like he had in the anime, that tapers down to a smoother, more natural looking waist. He's got those huge Freezer family thighs, a huge ass tail which has the reflective finish on the top, but silver paint on the bottom. We have 4 interchangeable heads with some great expressions that swap out very smoothly without any problems. The faces are painted silver as opposed to being vac metal, and the red eyes are a nice contrast to all that shiny silver. What I don't like, well, the sculpt is faithful to the source material and looks fantastic, and I think the tail was probably the most difficult to get right. While it looks good at some angles, the fact that it's a triangle shape means you'll have to break up the streamline aesthetic in certain poses. Also, I'm not sure why they decided to engineer it this way, but the tail slots in the figure like a key. You can't rotate the tail at all at the base, which again adds to the awkwardness of how the tail looks in certain poses. I'm not sure if it would have been better, but I think it would have looked a little bit more streamlined if they made the tail like your Monster Arts Godzilla's or D-Art's Charizard, where they're like overlapping tube pieces. I don't know, but I'm just not 100% sold on the tail. This isn't exactly a negative, but there is a looming constant fear of scuffing or chipping this beautiful finish. Nothing has scuffed or scratched yet, thank goodness, and I think if you handle it like you would any other high-end collectible, you should be okay. But still, it's in the back of your mind, and it's something that makes it a little less fun to pose, especially if you enjoy handling your figures on a regular basis. All that vac metal kind of throws you off when you first pick it up because you're kind of expecting a little bit of die cast or for it to have a bit of weight to it, but it's surprisingly light. Not fragile, but definitely not what I was expecting. All the joints are nice and smooth and the parts swap out really easily. It's not loose, and some may prefer it to be a little bit tighter, but when you're already conscious about over-handling a figure that has a higher risk of scratching, you're gonna want accessories that swap out without too much force. Alright, so let's take a look at Metal Cooler's articulation, and hopefully my reflection staring back at you isn't too much of a distraction, so let's take a look at his head articulation first. Hey guys, can you see me? Man, this is just so reflective. Anyway, his head articulation. Cooler does move his head up. Not too much. A lot better down though. We get some really good left and right head tilt. Fantastic. That neck joint there helps a lot. And of course, side to side rotation. So great head articulation there. So for his shoulder pads here are on a small ball joint, so they do have a bit of range going side to side, but it does have kind of this double hinge here. Sorry, single hinge. Oh, that's a double hinge. Yeah, it's a double hinge there. So it does move out of the way. And it looks pretty good too. You just kind of hide that joint there. 90 degrees at the shoulders. For butterfly joints, Cooler can bring his arm in. Not the greatest, and let's get that to focus. But it's pretty decent. 360 there at the shoulder. You do have a upper bicep swivel, double elbows, and your standard swivel and hinge at the wrist. So for ab articulation, it's a little bit different. His crotch and ab section, well, the front of his ab section there is actually one solid piece. You still do get the ab crunch though. And if you can see here, there's an inner, I guess, waist section, that silver part there, that you can actually crunch forward. It's not the greatest, but it's pretty decent. Doesn't go back too much though. But we do get fairly decent side to side as well. So your rotation will be at the upper torso joint there. So I mean, it's not the best ab articulation, but aesthetically, because this is one piece, it does look really good. For the legs, we get a pretty good spread there, left and right. I like that. He kicks up just a bit past 90 degrees. It's not the greatest, but it's not bad either. He doesn't kick back at all because of the way that the back here is sculpted. That's okay. We do have a thigh cut. Double knees, and again, the knees are chrome as well, which is a nice touch. We do have a swivel there at the foot. And this is not going to cooperate. Let's try to bend it the other way. All right, cool. The foot does move down. Not too bad, but it doesn't move up as much. That's as much range as you're going to get. And we do have ankle tilt, but it does kind of move out to the side when you do want to get it to spread out a little bit more. So you do have to compensate with the thigh cut there to get him to stand flat in a wide stance. So for the tail, again, like I said, I don't know why they did this, but the way you plug it in, there is a circular socket that goes inside, but again, it's kind of locked in there, so you can't rotate it, which is not ideal. So it does hinge up and down. And the tail is broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, all with hinges and swivels. So you do get a fair bit of articulation there, but because of the shape, as I mentioned, it does kind of break up that streamline aesthetic. It works, but I think it could be better. And again, it is a pretty long tail for cooler. He always did have a very long tail, but can be a little bit cumbersome. But it does help support the figure and let it stand. But all in all, decent articulation there for cooler. Could use a bit more range in the ab section, but again, the aesthetics, I guess, is a fair sacrifice. Still, you can get cooler in some pretty dynamic poses and have a bit of fun with it if you're not too worried about scratching it up, which, again, I haven't had any problems as yet, so knock on wood. So for accessories, in addition to the 4 gorgeous looking heads with those piercing red eyes, we get quite a few hands. Metal Cooler comes with a pair of fists, a set of relaxed hands, a pair of hands with fingers clenched, a pair of open palm blast hands, 2 pointing finger hands for your rapid fire beam attacks. We also get a pair of replacement feet for all your rock grabbing, face hugging, in-fight action poses. We also get this cool looking wiry arm attachment to recreate Metal Cooler's regeneration ability. It's not articulated but makes for a pretty cool in-battle display option. The arm itself is easy enough to detach, but the shoulder cap can be a little tricky since the ball joint is pretty small. Love the vac metal, hate the vac metal, I'll leave that up to you, but again, you can't deny that they did a damn good job of it, which I guess makes sense since they've been doing this for years with the Saint Seiya line. Personally, I love it. Tamashii don't always get it right when they try new things, but I'm happy that they're still trying to innovate even with such a safe line like Dragon Ball. Metal Cooler was the perfect release to give something crazy like this a go, and I think for the most part, it worked out. It's gonna stick out like a sore thumb in your collection, but that can also be a good thing. It definitely has a lot of shelf presence and then some. How they engineer the tail isn't ideal, it can be hella scary to pose sometimes, and the price is a bit of a hard pill to swallow, but overall I'm really satisfied with this release. Definitely one of my top figures in the line, and one that I wish I had enough money to own multiple copies of. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the review. It'll probably be my last full review for this year, but I will be back with my top 10 list for 2023 before the end of 2023. So see you all back for that. Enjoy the holidays, take good care of yourselves, and as always, yoroshiku.